All right, guys, here we are, episode 10 of Dynasty Trades in 5. I'm Clay with Dynasty Trades in 5 and DynastyPandemic.com.
Hey, I'm Shane is the worst, at Shane is the worst. Dynasty Pandemic. No, I'm not from Dynasty Pandemic. I'm from Dynasty Trades in 5,
Sure.
Dynasty Trades, HQ, and other things.
Scott, Dynasty and Chill, Dynasty Pandemic. I think I can claim that, right? Dynasty Trades in 5, Manic and Chill, Chasing the Helmet, a lot of other stuff. DLF. Yeah, let's go.
Rock and roll. So we didn't even have a player decided before we got on this stream. We're going through some names, and Scott's like, how about we do Antonio Brown? So do it. You start us off. It's your idea.
It's clearly somebody that if you have him, you've found gold because, 18 months ago, especially everyone remembers when he went to the Bills, then he didn't, then went to the Raiders, then he was gone, then he went to the Patriots for one game, then he was cut. Then he had this whole off the field stuff where it's like, okay, he may never play again. Then he resurfaces with the Buccaneers, and you're going, okay, it's a match made in heaven. But we've seen this with other guys too that make a comeback. We think they're going to hit, and they don't. But then they go to the Super Bowl, and I mean, he wasn't the leader last year, but he still had a great 8 games last season, and now he's essentially putting up wide receiver 1 numbers, and he's 33 years old, so you're hesitant to say, okay, he's worth a lot, but I don't have this stuff offhand, but I know there's people that have done research out there about some of these guys that are just so good that I think there's a chance he can hang around for a little bit longer, another year or two after this, and definitely one more year with Brady. I would think he'd want to come back. If Brady goes one more year, he'd want to go one more year at Tampa Bay. So if you just assume you get this year and next year, I mean, what's he worth?
I'm saying he's worth at least a first, right? You can give me a year and a half of production, which is basically all I can ever really ask for out of any player anyway, based on injuries and what else and everything else and changing situations. As long as he's tied to Brady, he's going to continue to be apparently elite. I'm already looking at this week. He's already has 3 weeks where he scored over 23 fantasy points. I don't. There's no reason it's going to stop either. He looks like Antonio Brown from 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, he's riding that manic energy. He's a manic 33. So
we used to talk about players. It looks like when they age, they're not going to age out because their game ages well. That's Antonio Brown, and it was never a physical issue with Antonio Brown. It was what we thought were mental issues. But if he's got his mentals right, a year and a half of production for him on a contender. I'll gladly give up a first rounder. 2022, not 2023 though.
Yeah, contender. If it's a late 22 first, might be able to gut it up. But we were talking before the show, and I'd sell him for a couple seconds. I mean, and then turn those seconds into a couple of Mon-Ra St. Browns. And just reset and just trust or hope that I'm not going to lose, a championship because I got rid of Antonio Brown.
Come in and kind of bullied around Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. He's knocked away 2 elite receivers that were there before him. So it's not like he's coming into just this great situation. He's producing, right up there with the elite players with 2 other really good receivers next to him. And there's many games where it's just like he's the number 1 option. I think the issue is he's not a scarce asset. There's a lot of receivers. There's a lot of receivers that are 31, 32, 33 that can still produce points. Guys that are a lot cheaper. So I think it's an interesting debate, Clay. You said you'd sell for 2 seconds. I think this comes down to, obviously, you're going to hear the narrative out there. Well, if you're a contender, you're not going to sell Antonio Brown. And, he's a great player to buy. If you are a contender and, you want to buy a receiver, sure. I think the real savvy question is, if you're a contender, is there a way you can make up the production and still cash out? Because I think you can agree. If you can get a first, this is a guy that you probably got on waivers in some leagues a couple of years ago. Now you can get for a first. I mean, that's a massive profit.
Yeah.
Can I replace that production cheaper? Can I get 2 Marvin Joneses for 2 seconds?
Exactly.
And then
here's the problem, though. Marvin Jones, he's going to give you weeks like he gave you the last 2 weeks prior to this week, where you're going to go, oh, I've got 3 points. Like you were saying, Antonio Brown has come into Tampa Bay and he's taken food out of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's mouth. And he's better than them, frankly. Like, just watching him play, he's better than both of them. But I think if I'm going for it and I'm just going to stick my balls out, I'm going to go Antonio Brown.
I like it. I mean, I think he's going to be a popular player that people try to kind of shop this week on, even contenders. I have a lot of teams with Antonio Brown. I think I have 10 or 11 dynasty teams. So I'm going to kind of look and say, okay, which ones can I maybe sell and still manage to get by? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, if you're in some of these leagues we're in where you can start like 7, 8, 9 receivers, like he's great as your number 6 to throw in there. You know what I mean? That's just crushing people when you can throw a guy like that wasn't even in your plans necessarily into your, wide receiver 5, 6, 7 spot. So those, if I have a lot of depth, I mean, I think it's a real savvy player to try to sell really high on, and you may get burned, but very fascinating dynasty trajectory on his value. Very rare do you see guys come back from the dead and basically ascend to this point.